I wanted to give you guys just a quick overview of the balance of payments. This is really just that, a quick overview, so I'll post some links in the description below of some more full videos about the balance of payments. Also, of course, you can look in your book in conjunction with the syllabus, and you should be in pretty good shape about that. A simple definition of the balance of payments, I have this drawing to sort of help us understand what the balance of payments is. It is a number that seeks to track all the movement of money into a country, so the circle is South Africa. It's not geographically accurate, into South Africa and out of South Africa. So everything that leaves South Africa is obviously going to be South African rand. But it's important to point out that the things that come into South Africa can be all sorts of various currencies. So it's not one country's trade relationship with any one other country. It's one country with the whole rest of the world. When we look at it, some of the math, we're going to talk about debits. Well, this is any negative number is referred to as a debit. So this would be cash or currency that is leaving a country. And then credits is currency that is entering a country. Now keep in mind, even though I've drawn it this way, it's not as if euros really enter the country. In most places in South Africa, it's not like you can take euros and actually go spend them. But if we want to simplify it, we can think about someone flying into the country with euros and taking their euros and putting them into or exchanging them at the airport, and then they have entered it. It might not be quite like that, but it's close enough for the purposes that we're going for. When the debits are greater than the credit, we're going to have a deficit. When the debits are less than the credits, we're going to have surplus, and obviously if they're equal to each other, we have a balance. Well, we see that word here, which must mean that the balance of payments always comes out to zero. Spoiler alert, it does. So you'll never see a math question that says to calculate the balance of payments because, well, that'd be really easy. It's zero. But you can have a deficit or a surplus in any of the components of the balance of payments. Therefore, the deficits and surpluses that you do find in these three different components, they must equal each other. That is, the debits, if there's a current account deficit, the surpluses in the capital and financial account would have to counteract that so that it equals zero. Okay, so as I was saying, there's three different parts of the balance of payments. We categorize the payments in three different ways. First of all, we look at what's called the current account, and there are four parts of the current account that you need to know. Keep in mind, this is the IB's way of organizing the balance of payments. There is some variety about how countries actually do this, but most do it this way, or at least very similarly to this. So the four parts of the current account, we look at what is called the balance of trade in goods. So this is how much money leaves the country to buy foreign goods, and how much money enters the country to buy South African goods. The balance of trade in services, how much money leaves the country to purchase services from other countries, how much money enters South Africa to purchase South African services. Income means people being paid who live in one country, their income coming from another country, or companies paying income to people outside of the country. Keep in mind that income can be any form of income. So even though stocks and bonds, for example, show up over here in the financial account, if you're talking about the money that stocks produce, the dividend, for example, so not the money you get from buying and selling the stock, but the portion of profit that you get, that would actually fit in here in income. If you have a rental property in a foreign country, that's going to be income. So any wage, rent, interest, or profit, anything like that we talk about as a type of income, that's what we're referring to here. Keep in mind, all of these are a balance of the two. So it's saying, yeah, some income comes into South Africa, some goes out of South Africa. Overall, what's the balance? Finally, we have what are called transfers, and these are simply when one person is just sending money. They're not buying a good, they're not buying a service, they're not paying someone, they're just sending money somewhere else. It could be charity, it could be sending it back home. We refer to that as a remittance payment. It doesn't really matter. They're not all that significant. The point is we have to check and see how much is there. Okay? So we add all those together and we come up with a value that is known as the current account. Well, depends. Many countries have what's called a current account deficit. So the US has a massive current account deficit, the biggest in the world. South Africa has a current account deficit, but other countries, and I guess it would have to equal out throughout the world, other countries have current account surpluses. So Germany has a very large current account surplus, China has a current account surplus, etc., etc. The second account, the second category of things that could be there is the capital account. Capital transfers are pretty insignificant. It typically is debt forgiveness. It could be if an insurance payment, although I guess life insurance doesn't count, if an insurance payment goes from one country to another country. But yeah, nothing in the capital account is really that significant, either in theory or an actual number. The capital account tends to be very small. The second type of thing that will go into the capital account is any buying and selling of a non-produced, so nothing over here, or non-financial, so nothing over there, anything that's bought and sold that doesn't fit into this category or that category. For the most part, you're talking about things like licenses, copyrights, rights to, mineral rights or, air traffic rights, anything like that. So, if I were to sell a chunk of land from South Africa to Botswana, well, that is not a produced asset and it's not a financial asset. Therefore, it would go in here. And I don't think they would ever do that. It was only an example. The third thing is financial account, and again, there's 4 components of that you need to know. Direct investment is when a foreign entity is directly putting money into another country. So Walmart building builders' warehouses in South Africa, that is direct investment. Portfolio investment is buying stocks, bonds, putting your money into foreign bank accounts, anything like that. When we talk about a portfolio, we mean like an investment portfolio, kind of the way we more think of investment being. Okay, I have a dotted line here because everything before that is a normal part of just the economy. We see it in the economy pretty regularly. It's businesses and consumers doing whatever they want because they want to do it. These two are a little bit different. So official reserves, this refers to the government. So the government holds large amounts of reserves of foreign currency. So the South African government holds lots of dollars, lots of euros, pounds, etc. The reason for that is just to kind of, if we're all kind of relying on each other, it makes the system more stable, at least for the people who want it to, who maybe wouldn't be as stable. Anyway, so when the government changes their level of official reserves, so for example, if the South African government were to decrease the level of euros they held, the way they would do that would be to sell their euros for rand. So that means those rand would be, those euros would be entering, they'd be changing those euros into rand, which means the amount of rand is increasing. Finally, because in theory, this has to balance. And it's kind of a different discussion, but essentially the idea is that you can only spend rand in one place, and that's South Africa. I know there's exceptions to that, but just go with me on this. Because that's true, in theory, this has to balance. And because of that, they put in this last little bit, which is errors and omissions, which is to say, we're not going to be able to track everything that happens in a country in a year. So theoretically, we know that any money that gets spent has to come back somehow. Therefore, whatever amount we're off by, so once we've added all these things together, the amount we're off by, we just put that here so that when we add X, Y, and Z, we come up with a balance of, well, a balance. It comes out to 0.